It's time for today's perspective on life from Paris. And the whole world is saying we will fight each other, but we will show them differently. Those are the words of Ethiopia's Prime Minister in his only pre-election rally before the election, which is being held there today. The election seen as a first real test for Abiy Ahmed, the country's controversial leader. You'll remember it's only 2 years since he won the Nobel Peace Prize after concluding a peace deal with neighbouring Eritrea. Now, he's also been credited with freeing political prisoners, putting women into high office, allowing more media freedom and kickstarting the economy. But more recently, jailings have increased, and he's fighting a war in the Tigray region against the TPLF, which dominated the national government until his appointment by the ruling coalition in 2018. Well, we're going to cross now and talk to Martin Plaut. He's a journalist who specialises in the Horn of Africa, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Commonwealth Studies at the University of London. Thanks very much for joining us on the programme today. How much of a test do you think this is for Abiy Ahmed?
Well, this is his first real test at the ballot box. I mean, he was in power since 2018. And he's been trying to find a moment in which to hold an election. And this should have been a triumph of democracy. But as you say, there are many problems in holding this election. It was postponed twice, first because of COVID, secondly because of technical reasons. And now, I'm afraid, only 4/5 of the electorate are capable of voting, because in 1/5 of the polling stations, no votes are taking place.
And obviously that's a democratic problem, but also from his point of view, he's been seen in a very positive way at the beginning when he first took power in 2018, but it's really been hit now, hasn't he, that sort of world opinion of him?
Indeed, you're absolutely right. And it's been hit in two different ways. Purely democratically, the largest ethnic group, the Oromo, from which he springs, have basically turned their back on him. And the two largest Oromo parties have refused to participate in the vote because their leaders are either in jail or they're under house arrest. So that is a real blow. They're a third of the population. There's also a conflict with the Oromo Liberation Front, which is fighting in certain areas. But by far and away, the biggest problem that he has is that in the northern region of Tigray, there is a full-scale war going on. And in the last day or so, we have heard that there has been big setbacks for the Ethiopian military, with the Tigrayans going on the offensive and putting out of action hundreds, perhaps thousands of troops that he has at his disposal and capturing a brigadier general. That's still to be confirmed, but those are the reports we're hearing.
And there's also a lot of reports, isn't there, of a big humanitarian crisis in the region there?
That is absolutely right. And this is really tragic. The area that is now being hit is exactly the same one as some of your viewers will recall in 1984-85, when he saw those terrible pictures of people dying in Korum. And there are now something like 350,000 people who are now in a Phase 5 crisis. A Phase 5 crisis is a famine. They are dying. We are seeing pictures of them coming in, the emaciated bodies. And in some ways, it could be even worse than 84-85, because then at least it was possible to get food aid in from Sudan. And now that's not possible because the links to Sudan, to the region, have been cut. So it either comes in through Ethiopia or it comes in through Eritrea. And the Eritreans have so far refused to allow any aid in through their ports.
And how does that play out in the rest of the country? Because as we said at the beginning, it's the rest of the country that's actually voting. I mean, are people there aware of what's going on in Tigray, or does it actually even help Abiy Ahmed because he seemed to be the strong man who's fighting against the rebels?
I think it depends on which area you're talking about. People are certainly aware of it because their own sons, mostly, some daughters, are up on the front line fighting and in some cases dying. So they are of course aware of what is going on, although only limited elements of that are shown on state television. But the real problem is that it's not just in those areas where it's impossible to hold an election. In the Somali region, in Harar, the elections have been postponed. In areas of the south, there are other conflicts, all to do with ethnicity, land, and displacement. And that means that people are really not concentrating on what should be, as I say, a triumphant election. There are not many good elections in Africa, I'm afraid. South Africa is one of the few. Ghana has good elections. But apart from that, there are 53 countries in Africa. Very few of them hold decent elections.
Bearing in mind the history in Ethiopia, and particularly what's happened over the last 4 and beyond years, though, I mean, is there actually realistically any way that Abiy Ahmed could have united the country and kept it going in a strong democracy?
I think he could have. As you say, there was this huge surge of goodwill when he came to power. That was because, as you said, he released a lot of the political prisoners. There was a hope of a real democracy, and he made peace with Eritrea. But it turned out that the peace with Eritrea was a poisoned chalice, because the Eritrean president, Isaias Afwerki, has really become in lockstep with the Ethiopian leader Abiy Ahmed. And he is really, in some people's views, pulling the strings and insisting that they crush the Tigrayans in the north. And this has meant that any resistance to that kind of strategy is now being swept aside. The Tigrayans have been pushed out of the military. They've been pushed out of top jobs in the civil servants. In places like the Ethiopian Airlines, one of the best in Africa, have been seen Tigrayans pushed out of their jobs. And this has really undermined his reputation and undermined his position. Now, Ethiopia is never going to be an easy country to run. It has a massively long history with great cultural values and marvelous, culture. But it also has terrible tensions between the various ethnic groups, which have been made worse in the last few years by these attempts to rig the elections and hold people in some form of semi-dictatorship. And that is the real problem that is facing now. How to resolve those questions is never going to be easy, but I'm afraid the Prime Minister will receive a mantle which is somewhat tarnished, and it's almost certain that he will win.
Martin Plough, good to talk to you today. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme. Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for Commonwealth Studies at the University of London. Thanks.